A lot of interesting stuff going on. First, there was the too much money made universe or simulation or whatever reasserting itself. 4 days tracking a gremlin through my car, getting it fixed, and having it still do the thing anyway. But then I can tighten an already tight bolt and then it starts. It's kind of weird. Um, my own personal ability to trying to get at my own personal ability to intuit things. Something I've honed for a long time, many years, decades, and I've spoken before about, very recently about the fact that there's been, a lifetime of wrong ones coming through, and then every now and then here and there something real. Sometimes this intuition works really well for, advance warning. It can work really well for, well, or poorly if I don't interpret it correctly, of warning me about something I may have forgotten or something I should consider, and it's up to me to not blow it off. There are other times that it guides me, whether it is selection of music, where what music I'm just like, well, I feel like listening to this today, and it turns out that there's a totally relevant song going to come up that's going to have to do with something, and I'll probably realize it before it starts playing. But before that, I'd be like, I don't know why, but I just want to listen to this, and it's the thing I want to listen to. And then this extends to other content. So, looking up certain informational content regarding certain phenomena that people tend to experience, and certainly that other people may or may not be aware of, and like to tell the people that are experiencing it that they're crazy. Um, what I believe I ended up doing was, after being mentally exhausted dealing with this crank no start, that my intuition spurred me to look up a topic, which, even by thinking about, attempts to manifest what the topic is about in the world. And this is useful in a couple of ways. It's dangerous too. You could get overwhelmed with a bunch of people, if you want to use that word, all independently, simultaneously oppressing someone. And I'm not saying like, oh, I'm being oppressed. No, no, no. I didn't. It's not like that. But the risk is there, is what I'm getting at. You could open up a collective subconscious that causes a small mob of people to do what a mob of people does. On the other part of it, I suppose there's really three useful ways. Number one, summoning that. If there is something that you were supposed to have corrected in your behavior, and this phenomenon was the result of you not doing so, once you've done so, them idiots ain't going to notice. You have to summon them again and prove to them repeatedly that whatever it is that you were in need of changing has been changed for them to fuck off. Until then, they're still going to be little shit. So it's useful for that. Because if you could be sneaky about it. I saw a really cool thing that was about somebody that had a concern that somebody was messing with their cell phone or with their, getting information on them from their provider. This person got a job at their cell phone provider selling phones. And it wasn't until, and didn't say nothing, and then it wasn't until a couple months later that people that this person suspected might be involved in some kind of fuckery casually found out that this person had been working at the cell phone company for months. And this person said that the issues immediately ceased. It's wild. It's crazy. There are some people in this world, if you want to use that term. I'm not sure people is an accurate description sometimes. But these people, there are people in the world that it's not that they want to see the world burn, it's that they delight in others' suffering because they themselves resent having to exist. And on the surface, there's an obvious solution that they're ignoring. But the reality is that there is no exit, there is no escape. So that obvious solution on the surface is not a solution at all for anyone, really. They have a purpose. They're there to do a thing. You're there to do a thing as well. And either it's going to intersect, cross, conflict, or operate independently away from each other. It is useful to find out if there's something you could be doing differently or better, according to a higher power. And they are not the higher power. They are simply a manifestation of a ripple effect. And by interpreting the ripple effect, as you would with a dream, you can determine from this higher power what it is that could be changed, could be altered, could be done differently. Doesn't mean you should just go about and do it, because you got to verify that that's actually a higher power that you're interacting with and not just your subconscious. There is a difference. Just like there is a difference between the bad ones that don't actually come to fruition, the intuitions, and the good ones that I've learned to trust, as long as I'm not so mentally akimbo that I'm unable to recognize it. Which is sometimes what it seems like the collective subgroup likes to do, is make people get agitated and mentally akimbo. It's possible there's consciousness directing that, but it's also possible that it's just a thing that happens. It could be, clouds forming in the presence of moisture and low air pressure. It's also useful because it is a source of living Gen-Ki. Gen-Ki from the dead takes a lot to get right, and even the fact that you're considering using it is not right. That's from a very esoteric, magical standpoint. If you can gain energy voluntarily from the living, it is infinitely superior to collecting leftover remnants of that energy after the fact. There is an implication to a person doing a thing like that, as I have just described. And I'm not talking about the post-mortem collection. I'm talking about voluntary living Genki for spiritual use, because that's what it's all about. There are going to be explanations, rationalizations by reality for these standalone complex interactions. These things that three-dimensionally you look at the universe and it's a place. The world we're in is just a place, right? We think of it as a flat plane even though we're on a surface of a globe. But there are other dimensions than just spatial movement and time. And something would appear, just to come into being, if fourth dimensionally the object was placed into the third dimension. You would get that first little fingertip and then the whole thing until there's a whole hand. Only instead of a hand, it's a ripple effect that manifests as human behavior. Certain things get said that the person saying it probably doesn't remember saying it. They have a completely different view in their head of what the interaction is. But they will say something, and it will be relevant to a context that you think that only you know. And if you ask them about it, they'll be very surprised or not even remember having said it, or if they did say it, they'll try and explain how it is that they came to it. You could get suspicious. It's very, very off-putting when you're not expecting it, and some person just walks up and pulls some Azazel from that Denzel Washington movie, Fallen. Just person talks to you and says a thing, and then another person comes up and finishes the sentence, and they're not with each other. If you are in a position that you feel you are experiencing gang stalking, there are a couple of things that are actually going on, and every other explanation for it is the universe rectifying the existence of this phenomenon. And that's it. You don't read too deep at this point into somebody from a higher authority within human government pays a person in some weird covert way to do a thing. For what? To get a person on the right track, off of a bad track, out of a rut, off their ass, whatever it is. The people that are experiencing this can be referred to in a number of different ways. But there are ways that are part of the attempt to understand the rationalization and not the phenomenon. The phenomenon is either a benevolent higher power actually looking out and guarding over you, but not telling you that it's happening, because most of us are not meant to know. And can also be that aspect of a higher power goading, which is GOAD, goad, is to kind of coerce or urge. It's what the staff that a shepherd uses is called. It is a goad. And yes, the hook is for saving the lamb from falling off the cliff or whatever, but it is a stick for pushing. Yeah, come on. That's what it is. It's a goad. That's to goad. if you are working in a divine conduit with a higher power, and you have some kind of impurity to your process. I'm not talking about chemical impurities. I'm talking about moral or behavioral impurities. By the way, this is definitely going to be a more than one part thing. You are being molded, you are being guided, you are growing. You are a tree in the garden being tended to. And I mean the garden. You are a tree. And if you are feeling goaded into making changes that make it impossible for you to do your thing, you either need to rethink how you're doing your thing or rethink the interpretation of, is this in fact a higher power, or is this a lower power which simply by the essence of its oppositeness, rather than guide you toward the growth, is to pull you toward the failure? Gesundheit, cat. That was a loud cat sneeze. I'll bet you could hear that. If it is the lower power, what you may be experiencing is a lot more harassment, intimidation, dirty looks from random people. It is the case of the light shining brightly attracts a number of insects, bugs to bug you. All bugs are insects, not all insects are bugs. The rationalized world attempting to rectify in a way that also, among so many other things, kind of lends toward a simulation. This rectification of the existence, nonetheless, of a phenomenon is like an immune system attacking a disease, an intruder. But it is also, what's a good counter thing for that? It is guiding you. You are a guest. It is your guest. I don't know exactly how it works. Haven't got to that part. The rationalization has people figuring that they are some kind of target. That there is a target on your back. And in a sense, there is, but it's not that you've been painted or marked. Well, I mean, yes, you've been marked, but not for, hunting or extermination or whatever. And the fully spiritual, transcendent of all the material. Okay, I'll back it off a bit. That's too far. That's too much. I can say it, but you won't believe it. You can't. It's not why you're here. A good spiritual, while connected to the worldliness, by the fact that this is where you're at in the world, is chosen or anointed. So yeah, you're marked. And to those who are subject to the dark half of things, a target or subject of jealousy, of a desire out of spite to derail God's train or whatever. Now, there's other deeper things, and what and who God is part of it. The issue is that, I shouldn't say the issue, the difficulty that is most often found to be, seems like the trick, is somehow cohabitating ideas in your head without being cognitively dissonant about it, of the spiritual half of human existence, a direct lineage and connection to the Almighty, the creator of all, the real, true higher power, which is more neutral than good, but is not bad or evil, except to say that it is encompassing the creation of those things as well, to some degree. But the material universe is a skin. The world that we perceive is just a tiny layer. It is a way of looking at it that our minds can handle. Before conscious life existed, all that was alive had in common that it was alive. And sensory awareness grew, but as sentient consciousness happens, it's been observed that there is a connection through the collective of unconscious, the commonality of that which we don't know and don't know that we don't know, and some that we do know that we don't know. But the collective unconscious is not the unconscious parts of us, because that's just your autonomic system. Your subconscious processes and is aware of things. The unconscious does not cognate, does not process, does not think. It is not conscious. It is the mechanical aspect, the metamechanics. But that we have in common with all life. Therefore, the collective unconscious is a collective made of all living things in any capacity, including stars, hurricanes, plus bugs, insects, people. What sets us apart is our direct and obvious resemblance to a higher power. I'm not talking people individually, like as persons. I'm saying humanity, both the collective of us as well as any of us individually. And I don't know what distinguishes the division. I don't know that there is a division between the chosen and everybody else. I think we might all be chosen and just not realize it. Those of us that are awakened, those of us that have some serious spiritual power, people who have various spiritual gifts in various capacities, those who are chosen. Doesn't make anybody better. Point of fact, most of us hate our day-to-day lives, don't we? I mean, it's a struggle. It's a constant struggle. It's a frustrating struggle. The suffering is long. Some of it pertains to simply the extant functionality of the existence of. And therefore, we're simply here to be here. Others may have specific purpose driven reasons for being. Ultimately, I think, I should say, maybe even believe, that when we die, we wake up as if from a dream.